that we could completely regenerate the heart after an infarct. And more importantly, we can restore the function, in other words, the pumping function of the heart that is radically reduced after an infarct.
BioNeex is the first biopharma R&D open exchange platform for licensing and co-development partnerships of drug candidates. We are working closely with biopharmaceutical companies that are actively seeking preclinical and clinical stage drug candidates for in-licensing and co-development partnerships to expand their R&D pipelines. If you are a development stage biotech company and are looking for licensing and co-development partners for your drug candidates, then list them for free on BioNeex and get contacted directly by these biopharmaceutical companies. We are already working with many partners. Would you like to learn more about BioNeex? Feel free to get in touch with us. We look forward to working with you.
Hello everyone, today we are back again with BioNeex interviews. Our guest is today the CEO and co-founder of Animatus Biosciences, Dr. Stephen Navran. Hello, Dr. Navran. It's great to having you today.
Thank you for having me.
Animatus Biosciences is a development stage biotech company developing regenerative therapeutics based on their unique modified mRNA platform. Please, Dr. Navran, tell me about your company a little bit more and what makes this development stage biotech company so unique.
Well, Animatus Biosciences is actually a partnership between an existing biotech company and a university laboratory. We've been doing this for several years. And our technology is based on the idea that as people age, they lose the ability to regenerate their tissues. So what we are working on is a technology that can allow a patient with a particular disease or injury to regenerate their own tissues by using messenger RNAs that regulate molecular pathways that allow cells to revert back to a more primitive state where they can replicate. In the adult, this ability to replicate cells is lost, and that is really one of the major bases for aging, or the absence of an ability to regenerate after an injury, for instance.
Thank you so much. My next question will be telling a little bit more about this technology and what kind of currently you have drug candidates in the pipeline, and what is the first indication that you currently approaching with this technology?
Well, our main product is a messenger RNA that is very important. It produces a protein that regulates development. So in the very early neonate, or even at the earlier than that, this protein, which is called serum response factor, activates cell replication. So as the neonate grows, it allows cells to replicate and create the organs. Once very early after birth, though, this protein, it's actually called a transcription factor because it controls many genes. This protein changes its ability, instead of mediating cell replication, it then causes cells to differentiate into their specific functional cell types. And it loses that ability to cause cell replication. So once you reach a certain age, you lose a lot of that regenerative capability. Mm-hmm. And this is especially true in the heart. And this is the basis of why when you have a heart attack, you can't simply regenerate your heart on your own. So we have taken this factor, serum response factor, and we have mutated it. So we have applied it through a messenger RNA version of it. So the messenger RNA makes the protein, and it makes this mutated protein. And the mutated protein, basically, we have caused it to go back to its embryonic form, where it can then activate cell replication. And this is the basis for our therapeutic. So we've actually done some work in infarcted mice, where we have shown that by applying this this messenger RNA, this mutant form, into the hearts, that we could completely regenerate the heart after an infarct. And more importantly, we can restore the function, in other words, the pumping function of the heart that is radically reduced after an infarct. And another positive is that after a heart attack, the heart usually undergoes scarring. It's a response to injury. Scarring is not a good thing because scar tissue doesn't contract, so it doesn't contribute to the function of the heart. So it leaves the heart in an impaired state. So what we've seen also is this treatment reduces scarring substantially. So we think that this treatment, which is readily injected into the heart through a catheter easily, could be literally an outpatient procedure, is really the best way of regenerating the heart. Right now, the treatments for heart failure are just based on trying to take the load off the heart or make the heart beat more forcefully, but it really doesn't address the ability to regenerate the heart.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Thank you, Dr. Navran. I want to ask you here, as we have having today these mRNA-based vaccines, can you please a little bit explain to our audience how it's like connected to the current vaccines? What there is a difference and a common thing?
Well, yeah, the vaccines are really aimed at making a piece of the coronavirus, the spike protein. And the spike protein is important because it is the way that the virus enters cells. So if you can raise antibodies against the spike protein, you can prevent these, the coronavirus from entering cells, and therefore, that's a cure. And eventually, the rest of the immune system will destroy those virus particles. So it's the protein that the messenger RNA makes that is really the important thing, because that's what raises antibodies against that protein. So what we do is again to make a protein from the messenger RNA that has its own function, a different function, but it's the same idea. is that it makes the protein. And so we bypass the nucleus, basically. We don't try to do gene therapy because the problems with gene therapy are it's difficult to control. So if you try to turn on a gene from the nucleus, you may turn it on too much. And in our case, too much growth could mean cancer. So what we do by using the messenger RNA, which is a very transient molecule, so it's only around for about 48 hours, produces the protein and then it's gone. So we don't have the risk of overproducing cells, which is then, a cancer risk.
I see. Thank you so much for explaining. And very quick, coming to the indication, heart infarct, that you have already quite good successful preclinical data. Maybe you can give a little bit also our audience understanding what the difference compared to stem cell therapy, like what you are doing and what makes.
Okay, sure, I can comment on that. So most of the stem cell therapies that are being tested right now in clinical trials are what they call adult stem cells. So they're not exactly cells that can turn into cardiomyocytes or cardiac cells. What they do is they secrete things like growth factors and other chemicals that suppress inflammation, because that's one of the hallmarks of an infarct. There's a lot of inflammation that actually causes the damage to the heart. So these adult stem cells are, not exactly replacements for cardiomyocytes. So they have shown some effectiveness in reducing the seriousness of an infarct, but they don't regenerate a heart. The other types of cells are called induced pluripotent cells, which are like embryonic stem cells in a way, and they can actually be differentiated into cardiomyocytes. But they have had a problem in that the cardiomyocytes are immature, and when you put them in the heart, they can cause arrhythmias. So both of these kinds of approaches require extraction of cells from donors or the patient themselves, extensive culturing, and then putting these cells back into the hearts. And the problem with that is it's very expensive and it's hard to scale up. So with messenger RNA, you can make mass quantities of messenger RNA, as you've seen with the vaccines. They've made billions of doses of these already. So the ability to scale up, the cost is much lower than it would be for cell therapy as well. So we think we have a number of advantages over the therapies that are being contemplated now. And I would add also that these networks of genes that our mRNA addresses are also active in many other tissues as well. So we're not just focusing on heart failure. The reason we wanted to start with heart failure is because it's such an unmet need, and it also eats up a huge amount of money in treating these patients. There's a lot of them. In the United States, it's about 6 million. I think over in the world, it's about 28 million. So there's a lot of patients. A lot of money is spent treating them, and there's no good outcome. Eventually, they all will die. And we can offer a pathway to a cure.
Yes. So that sounds really like Animatus Biosciences bringing a new type of therapeutic candidates, therapeutics in regenerative medicine that never been approached so far.
Some people will say that Moderna has a similar focus. However, they don't use these modified mRNAs like we do. So I would say that you know, our technology is really developed over decades before the company was even you know, constituted. So it's a very deeply researched therapeutic category.
Yes, and you know that brings me naturally to my next question. To bring this technology that you are developing already decades, that's really completely changing the way of mRNA can treat new diseases and new approach new indications. What type of like business partnerships are you looking? Are you currently looking for
Well,
licensing?
yeah, as a small company, we understand that it's going to be difficult for us to raise the kind of money to go to actually commercialize this by ourselves. So we are looking for partners, especially those that have the resources to carry out a human trial and then, you know, commercialize it. And that's really what our focus is on this first product. As I said, we have a number of possibilities for other tissues and organs where this could be used. And we may be in a position to, in the future, if we get this first one commercialized, to be able to expand our company to the point where we can commercialize some of these other products or these other indications, let's say, ourselves.
Exactly, exactly. So the technology can be applied in many type of indications when there is basically tissue damage, right?
Exactly. And I would also say, now we haven't tested this explicitly, but we think it may be useful just in aging.
Yes.
So as cells age, they become senescent. And we're anxious to try an experiment where we take a senescent or an aged animal, for instance, and see if we can regenerate tissues just, you know, just from aging, not necessarily from an injury or a disease, but just aging.
Yes. So basically replacing the old tissues with the new ones.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is quite interesting. Again, the difference compared to the stem cell therapy that with your technology, you induce the body that they will replace their cell through the stem cell, right?
Exactly. We call it reprogramming.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, I want to continue with my question about the partnerships. Who would be, in this sense, an ideal partner for Animatus Biosciences at this stage? And I also want to tell our audience that Animatus Biosciences is a BioNeex platform member. Their drug candidate is at the moment listed on BioNeex. So you can go and take a look. And, you know, my adding question will be why you believe then BioNeex can be helpful on this journey.
Well, yeah. So to start with your first question, you know, our ideal partner would be a large pharma or biotech company with it, obviously with an interest in cardiovascular therapeutics. And there's a number of them out there right now that have small molecule products that, you know, basically treat the symptoms without actually improving the, you know, the overall outcome. So those companies would be some, you know, of interest, I think, or would be interested in us, I hope, as potential partners, and then biotechs as well, larger ones. And one of the things that we hoped for with BioNeex is to be able to get noticed by by some of these companies more so. I mean, we've already done some contacts with some of them, but obviously the more you get out in front of people and get your message out, the more possibilities you have. And in the interim, we are actually looking for some investment as well, because we want to do the next stage, which is a large animal infarct study. So all the companies we've talked to so far have said that that's a key metric for them to even look at us. If we can show that we can do this regeneration in a pig model, for instance, that would be really the precursor to doing a human trial, because the pig heart is more like the human heart than a small animal rodent would be. And this is a standard procedure in the cardiovascular therapeutics area. So we want to do that study, and that's one of the things we're trying to raise money for. Is pig study is very much more expensive, as you can imagine, than a mouse study. Just, the animals are more expensive. The procedures are more like you would do in a human, for instance. So all of the the procedures are together very expensive. Measurements, we do echocardiography, all sorts of measurements on the pigs, and it's probably we already know what the cost is. It's going to be around $1 million. So we're raising money for partly for that. I mean, that's a key metric for us and for a potential investor or partner.
Yes, that's actually going to be my question. Tell about a little bit the next round that you're trying to raise, and maybe like giving and understanding the potential investors, how well at the moment companies funded, and what will be an amount for the next round approximately.
Well, we're looking for a Series A. We already have a seed round of $750,000. So that gives us the ability to do, in vitro lab work, small animal work. We pay a couple of scientists now. All this work virtually goes on in an academic laboratory. So we're looking to raise a Series A of $5 million. And of course, about $1 million plus or minus goes to the pig study, but we also want to develop an outside laboratory outside the academic institution for a variety of reasons. But the most important is that if anything we discover in the institution belongs to them, and we have to license it. It's, in terms of IP. So we've already done that once, and we would like to be able to, have our own IP if we have an outside facility, and we also want to hire more people because now we have 2 full-time employees, but a lot of work is being done by graduate students and postdoctorals because they're kind of free labor, but they're also not as productive as full-time employees. So we want to expand that part of the business as well, and we want to put them in a freestanding facility outside the university.
That's very interesting. Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds really that the major next milestone is the fundraising. Right? Is there?
Well, the pig study would be our biological milestone.
Yes.
Getting that done, but we have to raise the money to do it before we can do it. So yes, the money raising is our key factor here.
Key factor, and the next major milestone will be the pig study.
Exactly.
Perfect. And can you a little bit tell us? In general, the vision that you're having as a CEO and co-founder about Animatus Biosciences, like long-term and long-term vision.
Right. We consider this technology to be a platform, as I said before, because so many developmental processes in other organs have the same, susceptibility to reprogramming. So we haven't really, tested any of them because we're so focused right now on the heart failure therapeutic. But we think that we could make inroads into a variety of diseases, and also, as I said, just aging. The debilitations caused by aging could potentially be ameliorated by this technology. So that's really where we want to go, and we're also doing some exploratory studies with other proteins that have potential for regeneration, not specifically this one. So we've done some mutations on another protein, and we've shown that these mutant forms, and again, they're messenger RNAs. These mutant forms are much more powerful, at least in our in vitro studies. These are against cell cultures, more powerful than the parent molecule. So we think that this overall technology has some ability to produce better messenger RNAs than what we call the wild type, which means the natural occurring type. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of work that can be done there as well. So we're working on one, just one right now of those types of proteins.
Yes. So it sounds like Animatus Biosciences has a big vision to approach many type of therapeutic areas and indications, from cardiovascular to aging issues, and it can be applied in any type of diseases where there is a tissue damage and need a repair, right?
Exactly. I have sort of a list of the tissues, if anybody's interested, that have already been shown to be regulated by this serum response factor. Nerves, blood vessels, skeletal muscle, liver, pancreas, intestine, skin, immune cells, and lung. So you can see that there's a lot of potential targets there that are, all of them have potential regenerative therapeutic possibilities.
Thank you, Dr. Navran. Thank you so much for giving today a great overview about Animatus Biosciences. It's really interesting what the company is developing. We hope as soon as possible the company will be able to raise the amount and then start the big study in this particular indication in heart damage. I want once again to remind to our listeners that today our guest was the CEO and co-founder of Animatus Biosciences, Dr. Steven Navran. And Animatus Biosciences is a development stage biotech company developing regenerative therapeutics based on their unique modified mRNA platform. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to tell our story.
It's a great pleasure, Dr. Navran. Thank you so much, and we will come again with another BioNeex interview.